All right. And we'll wait till like 6:04 and we'll go ahead and get started. I want to respect everyone's time. I think I'm the only co-chair that's going to be here today. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about, a lot to do.
Iris, ladies.
Hello.
How are you?
All right. All right. So 6:04. Let's go ahead and just kind of get started. We got a lot to do, a lot to talk about. Happy New Year, everyone. The first time we're meeting since the New Year, so Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a great holiday season. I am, unfortunately, the other co-chairs couldn't make it today, but I thought it was important to still go ahead and have a meeting because I feel like we have a lot of work to accomplish in a short period of time. So just wanted to go ahead and get started. First and foremost, wanted to address the survey. Eris Lady sent out a survey that Anika, Coach D, Axel, and Mary were so gracious in working on. So she's distributed the link and also a flyer that can accompany it. Please share this with your network. We're trying to make sure we get some feedback from the residents of Mount Vernon, the business owners of Mount Vernon. So share the link as much as possible. Encourage others to share the link. Okay. Hey, David, how are you? Yeah, so share the link. It's all in the email that Eris Lady sent out. And yes, so I know a few people had some concerns about time. I wanted to address that as well on this call. Yes, we're running short on time. So I think that these meetings will need to be concise. We actually need to make these like working sessions. But I also want to encourage folks to go ahead. Once we break out into these subcommittees, I would love for someone to, volunteer to take control and leadership of that subcommittee and kind of report back, right? And just let us know what exactly is happening, how we can assist. Yeah, we really just have to keep, oh, my video isn't on, huh? Sorry, I meant to be smiling at everyone. So yes, so we need to meet in these subcommittee meetings, get some work done. During this meeting, we're going to have a presentation from Mary, just on like some of the work that the policy and oversight committee has been doing, and really Mary's been doing around some of the policy recommendations. The one that she's presenting on today is going to be the use of force policy. So once she presents, would love for you all to give some feedback. But I think the real reason for our presentation is just to kind of give some guidance on how we've approached tackling some of these recommendations, some of the research that we've done, really that Mary's done around the use of force, and Anika, who's assisted her as well. And yeah, I want to get the ball rolling, right? So like I said, once we are about to go into the breakout sessions, would love for someone from each subcommittee to volunteer if you're willing to take notes, if you're willing to coordinate the meetings offline, right? We can't continue to meet twice a week. And for those, if we want to meet the deadline. So
yeah. I have a question though, before we go any further. Do you think it might be a good idea for me to go over the methodology and the presentation before we go into subcommittees? Because that might fire some of those conversations.
Yes, that's the goal. So just as far as the timeline goes, I know we had a goal for February 1st and getting a written document completed. I think that's virtually impossible at this point. So I do want to extend that to February 15th and just make that's a little bit more realistic. It's not a ton of time more, but I do want to extend that deadline or that goal to February 15th. and see if anyone had any thoughts or feedback on that. No. Okay.
I'm just working as fast and as hard as I can, and I'm real concerned about the timeline. But we do have to have a public presentation, right, for all our stuff and get feedback. So we need to be cognizant of that too, if we want to do the April deadline of the governors. And I'd really like us to meet that.
Right.
So if we do push it to later in February, then we cannot flag at all after that.
Breaking up.
I'm breaking up.
Okay. I agree, Mary. Definitely need to just get the ball rolling, right? So some of the things that our lady sent out in the email that I want us to think about is what data do we need from the police department? And what I would love for you to do is just send it in so that I can congregate everything, consolidate everything, and send it over to Commissioner Glenn Scott, DC Lackard, so that they're not getting a million requests from everywhere and don't feel overwhelmed by the process. So I would love to be able to consolidate those things as soon as possible. So when we break out in the subcommittees, if you have anything, any data that you want to request from them, and we can keep an ongoing list. I can make a Google document so that you can see what we've requested already and see if you want to add anything onto that. Also want you all to think about what format the recommendations are going to be in. So Mary's going to share something that she's put into PowerPoint, but that's not the only format, right? When we think about, you know, just getting some of these recommendations together, it can be a different format. And then at the end, we can talk about the consolidation of it all. So without further ado, Mary, if you're ready to kind of jump into the—
I would, if I may, I would just like, because with the material from the police, from the Mount Vernon police, right? Because like we're pretending right now, oh, if anybody needs stuff from the police, we should send it in. I mean, we have requested stuff from the police since this commission started, right? And I would really like to know what is the status of it. Have anybody actually received anything, right? Because we're right now in the middle of January, okay? We are pushing the deadline. But I also want to hold them accountable and basically know, have we ever received anything so far from the police department? Because I know requests have been made throughout the meeting. So I would just like to know what the communication is and what the status is, and not pretend like, oh, let's send them some information when we have already done it and not received it.
So Axel, I can't, I'm not sure it's a fair statement to say that requests have been made from the beginning of the commission, but I know that I recently put in some requests with DC Lackard, and unfortunately DC Lackard has been out of office, right? So she's been trying to assist as best as she can. However, you know, she's limited, she's out of the office. So what I can do is put out a request to Commissioner Glenn Scott and see if he can assist. But I know that the requests weren't made, like I didn't make the request from the beginning of the commission. So
We made a few.
Yeah, we made a
okay.
Yeah, we made a Daniel. We made a request on December 7th, asking for the discipline matrix that Glenn Scott had explained to us about. It was supposed to give us about the internal disciplines, the adjudication of disciplines, things along that line. That was December 7th. Okay. And so that's more than a month now.
Crime stats then too with demographic breakout. We haven't received anything.
Okay.
So you have to permit me to screen share, Danielle, please.
All right. Give me 1 second. So what I'll say to that is, please, any outstanding requests, please send them to me, right? I want to be able to consolidate them, and then I can keep track and we can hold them accountable for the request. Right. But you know, it's overwhelming, as you can imagine, to get a million requests from one commission. So I want to do the best. I want to be, you know, as efficient as possible, as efficient as possible.
No, I understand that, but I just wanted to remark, right? Because I know it wasn't you, but requests have been made, right? Okay. So let's not pretend they were not made. Requests were made, various requests, and they were not answered. I would also like to know what happened to them. Were they never forwarded, right? Because we're pretty far ahead. We are on a crunch deadline right now. So in terms of, you know, that's also part of accountability, right? Like, are they actually answering to us? Does DC Lackard just never forward them? You know, I would like to know that, because right now we're crunching and it all falls on you. And it would be nice to know what happened to the prior requests. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So Axel, if it's you or Coach Z, could you send me over what you requested so that I can make sure it's added to the document, and then I can follow up. All right, Mary, you should have access to share screen.
Okay, so I'll start out by saying that this process by which I work, it's only one process. People can do whatever they want. But for me, I do PowerPoints because I do a lot of research, and then I pull what I've found into a slide and I'll save it there. Then I can read it easily. And I still am disabled. It's Mary Kingsley with the mute sign on, please, because that's my computer. My sound doesn't work right on my computer, so I use my iPad.
Done.
Okay, there we go. So this is one that I put together for the use of force. I certainly have to give the credit to folks who helped me with this. And Danielle and Anika and I are the subcommittee on the police use of force, but Axel and Dwayne have also helped. And Axel and Dwayne and Anika and myself have been working together a lot. We have spoken all the work that I've done. I've had their feedback on. So while I did it, it's not my product alone. So here we have our friendly police. The police are our friends. And I set these up as if I was doing a presentation to the public or to the police department or to our commission in a chatty manner. That is the traditional teaching. Why has that been lost? Why do so many feel that the police are the enemy? The police enforce the law. Why are feedback, complaints, or requests viewed as anti-police? How did the police and the community become at odds? The police are a nameless wall. Does appearance count? Should we be afraid of the police? Is there a difference between the police and an armed force? What is that difference? Is being able to identify a police officer individually a help? Use of force. Here's a graphic that we found that we all liked. There are many out there. You can take your pick, but it really kind of shows the continuum both on the side of the subject and the officer and how things can go up and down. And you'll notice that as we escalate, the subject injury potential increases and the officer injury potential increase. Use of force is a topic that is addressed frequently in the news. It's a way of controlling situations and individuals that is taught in police academies. It's a topic that bears visitation and revisitation for continued improvement in professional practice. And it's a topic that bears visitation and revisitation for continued improvement in police and community relations. What does the use of force mean? Broadly speaking, the use of force by law enforcement officers become necessary and is permitted under specific circumstances, such as in self-defense or in defense of another individual or group. There is no single universally agreed upon definition of use of force. The International Association of Chiefs of Police has described the use of force as the amount of effort required by police to compel compliance in an unwilling subject. Officers receive guidance from their individual agencies, but no universal set of rules governs when officers should use force and how much. Context counts. No two situations are the same, nor are any two officers. In a potentially threatening situation, an officer will quickly tailor a response and apply force if necessary. Situational awareness is essential, and officers are trained to judge when a crisis requires the use of force to regain control of a situation. In most cases, time becomes the key variable in determining when an officer chooses to use force. And you'll notice that I am using footnotes, and I have started compiling independent bibliographies because these are not my sentences, all of them. They're not all my ideas. And I want to provide the reference points that I use to come up with these things or took these quotes out of so that people can read more on that. And I want to say, when we say context counts, I just can give you an example that if I encounter a situation and Axel encounters the same situation and Dwayne encounters the same situation, I am likely going to feel that I need to use force more quickly than either of them just because of my age and my size, you know? So it really is situational. And I've tried really hard to incorporate the perspective of everybody, not just my own. And I have reached out to the police department to have a conversation about this on 3 different occasions, but I have not been successful. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Thought-provoking questions. Can we all accept that there are times that the use of force is necessary? How about can we agree that the use of force is often a split-second decision? Is it desirable that we have prescribed instances when the use of force is absolutely appropriate? Should there be written guidelines for a police department? Should the public be aware of these guidelines? Should there be in place a mechanism for review, retraining, or job impact when the force is misused? Should there be exceptions to the rule? If I were presenting this to a group, what I would like to do is have the sides printed where people could take notes, because these are all things that are open for discussion. And depending on the amount of time you have, you can stop and have a conversation at the end of each one of these if you wanted. Who should decide those exceptions? Why have a use of force policy? In any case, it's essential for a department to have a comprehensive use of force policy to aid officers making split-second life or death decisions in dangerous situations. Good law enforcement use of force policy and training help keep our officers and communities safe. Effective policy can also build trust between your department and the people you serve. And that comes from a source that I footnoted below. Over the years, the Community Relations Service of the U.S. Department of Justice has assisted police departments and communities all over the country in coming to grips with the difficult task of maintaining law and order in a complex and changing multicultural society. Frequently, these efforts have involved minority citizens' complaints about police behavior, use of force, and hate groups. The underlying assumption is that a police force and the community it serves must reach consensus on the values that guide the police force. Those values, while implicit in our Constitution, must embrace as clearly as possible the protection of individual life and liberty, and at the same time, the measures necessary to maintain a peaceful and stable society. To accomplish this, a police executive must be familiar not only with his or her own police culture, but with the community culture as well, which is no easy task in neighborhoods experiencing major demographic changes. And that comes straight out of the U.S. Justice Department. More on the why. The Community Relations Service, and this is again from the Justice Department. Involvement in police citizen violence stems directly from the CRS mandate to assist in community conflicts that threaten peaceful race relations in communities. Among the causes of such disputes, none is more volatile than the allegations of unwarranted police use of deadly force against minority citizens. Even a perception that police follow this practice is cause for concern because the negative impact on police-citizen relations will be the same. And if you'll see, I kind of put that in there to answer one of my previous questions that I let people chew on for a little while, and then I put this in. How you order your presentation is very individual. In addition to adopting a set of values, equally important that police departments clearly and publicly state those values. This sets forth the department's philosophy of policing and its commitment to high standards for all to know and understand. To be significant, these values must be known to all members of the community as well as all members of the police department. In addition, a department's values must incorporate citizens' expectations, desires, and preferences. A department's policies and practices flow from its values. Without clear values, it's unlikely that practices will be as focused as they should. Anyway, on that note, I also did a mission statement with a values and core value statement and a vision statement for the MVPD that the commissioner has taken from me. And I think all of these things tie in one into another. And I think they all also lead to officer recruitment and retention as well as transparency for the public. This is a graphic that I got from a website called Campaign Zero. It's very interesting. I would recommend you look at it. And if you'll notice, different cities have different rates of police killings per 1,000 population. Rate of killings, we can all agree that we would like to have less killings by police. I'm sure no one would dispute that. We can look at this data and make a correlation to departments that have a use of force policy in the next slide. Note, not all departments would provide data, so you're not going to see a one-to-one comparison, but I would draw your eye to Stockton right here, which is the second highest. At 24 is the rate. And this comes from the study on the use of force by Campaign Zero, and those are clickable links. So if someone were looking at this on their own, they could click that and go to that resource and see it. Red means no use of force policy. Please note that the absence of a use of force policy in Stockton, right here, see it? None, no policy at all. And you saw the rate in the previous slide, one of the highest. Okay, Orlando didn't provide their, Orlando was higher and they didn't provide their data. These graphs are from the Coalition Task Force, hyperlinked below. Data, like data. I want to just direct you in this instance principally to the charts below, and you can see officers in department with more restrictive use of force policies are less likely to be assaulted in the line of duty, and they are less likely to be killed in the line of duty. This is from the Coalition Zero report. What are the guidelines to consider? Require officers to de-escalate situations when possible before using force. Use a force continuum, that should be or matrix, sorry, that defines or limits the types of force and or weapons that can be used to respond to specific types of resistance. Restrict chokeholds and strangleholds, including carotid restraints, to situations where deadly force is authorized or prohibit them altogether. Require officers to give a verbal warning when possible before using deadly force. Prohibit officers from shooting at people in moving vehicles unless the person poses a deadly threat by means other than the vehicle, for example, shooting at people from the vehicle. Require officers to exhaust all other reasonable alternatives before resorting to use deadly force. Require comprehensive reporting that includes both use of force and threats of force, for example, reporting instances when an officer threatens a civilian with a firearm. Have all lethal force incident reports reviewed by superior officers for completeness. This will be used in court at times. So it's really essential that these reports are well completed. The old pyramid theory. Here we have a graphic example: no force, moderate, limited force, less lethal force, deadly force. This is escalation, this is de-escalation. These arrows can really go both ways. No graphic will ever be able to capture all the varied and rapid situations officers face. Judgment is always required. Hindsight is always 20/20. What about? Should a police department and community require its officers to intervene with another officer is using excessive force? That should be when. Isn't the definition of professionalism constantly knowing there can be improvement and peer review where the members themselves know what is right and wrong and demand that from their peers? Is the thin blue line a defense against wrongdoing, or is it knowing you stand with each other in the right? When is it excessive? Public perception is one factor in policing. What something appears to the uninvolved may be drastically different than to those present. And I present this photo because to me, this looks like excessive force. But maybe he was crazed. Maybe he has a gun in his hand. Maybe he has two knives. I don't know, because I only see one static picture. Would guidelines help reduce those misperceptions? Is there fear that it might condemn officers? I have some recommendations. A comprehensive use of force policy will be written. It will be updated as needed with approval from the CPC, and I'm making another commission. That's what the CPC is. I'm going to tell you about that next. The MVPD and the mayor. A clearly outlined policy mitigates legal jeopardy. It will be taught to all current and incoming officers. This sets forth the department's philosophy of policing, commitment to high standards. It will reflect best practices in law enforcement, refer to the use of force continuum, including least lethal tactics whenever possible, duty to intervene and duty to report to be included. It will require that the use of force be situationally appropriate. It must have procedures on escalation and de-escalation tactics, which include scale of force alternatives. And it will be referred to in all disciplinary actions, and it will guide the CCRB actions. I think I'm going to take that one out. Use of force continuum. Always remember the level of force in police response is dictated by the situation. Police officers use the force continuum, a scale of force alternatives, to mediate the level of response used in a given situation. This should be 5. The continuum is broken down into 5 broad levels. Each level is designed to be flexible. I knew that 6 was in there somewhere and I couldn't find it, and there it is. Each level is designed to be flexible as the need for force changes as the situation develops. It is common for the level of force to go from level 2 to level 3 and back again in a matter of seconds. And this just demonstrates opposing forces up and down. Level 1, use of force. It's the officer presence. No force is used. This is considered the best way to resolve a situation if possible. The mere presence is often enough to stop a crime. Without saying the word, the mere presence of a police officer can deter crime by the simple use of body language and gestures. Officers' tone and attitudes are professional and non-threatening. This includes being calm in tone and respectful in words and names. At this level, gestures should be non-threatening. Level 2, verbal commands. Used in combination with a visible presence, the use of voice can usually achieve the desired results. Whether you say stop, don't move, be quiet, listen to me, let me see your ID, or you're under arrest, voice commands in conjunction with your mere presence will almost always resolve the situation. The content of the messages is important as your demeanor. It is always best to start out calm but firm and non-threatening. Your choice of words and intensity can be increased as necessary or used in short commands in more serious situations. The right combination of words in combination with officer present can de-escalate a tense situation and prevent the need for a physical altercation. Training and experience improves the ability of a police officer to communicate effectively with everyone they come in contact with, and it is acknowledged that the best efforts at communication can fail, however, and that is then the next step in the continuum. Level 3, empty hand control. Certain situations will arise when words alone will not reduce the aggression. This is the time police officers will need to get involved physically. This is a level of control employed by police officers minus the aid of equipment or weapons. There are 2 subcategories called soft empty hand techniques and hard empty hand techniques. This level, minimal force would involve the use of bare hands to guide, hold, and restrain, applying pressure points and takedown techniques that have a minimal chance of injury. And although this graphic looks beastly, that is exactly what this is, because this person is restrained and held down, not injured, and hopefully going to calm down. Officers use grabs, holds, and joint locks to restrain an individual. Hard empty hands. At this level, the use of force involves kicks, punches, or other striking techniques such as the brachial stun or other strikes to key motor points that have a moderate chance of injury. Level 4, pepper spray, baton, and taser. When the suspect is violent or threatening, more extreme but non-deadly measures must be used to bring the suspect under control or effect an arrest. Before moving to this level of force, it is assumed that less physical measures have already been tried. Blunt impact may use a baton or projectile. chemical, pepper spray, etc. Conducted energy devices, that's the taser. Level 5 is lethal force. Officers use lethal weapons to gain control of a situation. This should only be used if a suspect is reasonably believed to pose a serious threat to the officer or another individual. Officers use deadly weapons such as firearms to stop an individual's action. So all proposed policy that follows is distilled and adopted from the best practice websites and sources that are either footnoted throughout this presentation or can be found on the bibliography. While there is no universal definition of excess use of force, as in the case of mandated child abuse reporters, a suspicion of excess force use is enough to require a report of the same. And this statement here is from the United Nations Human Rights Commission. Law enforcement officials shall not use firearms against persons except in self-defense or defense of others against the imminent threat of death or serious injury to prevent the perpetration of particularly serious crime involving grave threat to life, to arrest a person presenting such a danger and resisting their authority, etc. Okay, only done when strictly unavoidable to protect life. That's the UN statement on use of force. Possible policy, MVPD requires all employees are aware of and understand, requires its members to follow the guidelines, will always require that the least force possible used to diffuse, control, or eliminate a situation or occurrence. Police actions will follow the continuum of force procedures. Use of force will involve steps of intervention that are fluid and appropriate to change in a moment of confrontation. All interventions will be subject to reasonable judgment. Reasonable judgment will be defined by persons in the police administration and the civilian oversight body, and as documented in the MVPD written use of property. And I'll direct you again to this term civilian oversight body, which I'm going to speak about when I get done with this briefly. Anytime lethal force is used, there will be a complete documentation and a supervisory and civilian oversight body that should have a review after it. All police and police employees have a duty to intervene and report if they suspect there is excessive use of force as defined by police administration and civilian oversight board. All municipal employees and police employees have a duty to report any use of force. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary.
You're welcome.
Presentation. So what I want to do is open it up to the floor for feedback, comments, thoughts.
How do I stop sharing?
There should be a stop share button right above the presentation.
Oh, there it is. I got it. Okay. And just to elucidate on what I said with the civilian oversight thing, as I'm working on, I was trying to work on CCRB, and as I'm doing research, I'm finding a lot of stuff with civilian oversight commissions in very much differing forms. And I'm putting together a presentation on that so that we can discuss the options there. But most municipalities are having some form of civilian oversight of the police department.
Anybody, any thoughts, questions?
Yeah, Danielle. One of the things, and I spoke to Mary about this, is that when you go to the Citizens Police Academy, a lot of that is presented in that police academy. But there's some things that Glenn Scott had told me that they have a new use or they edited use of force policy. So so one of the things if you can ask for, is that written copy of that use of force, and then that way we can try to see if we can mesh or align what's being submitted by us and those new things that were being suggested can be put in. So that way we can really isolate the new things that we put in and not have to go over, for redundancy's sake, the things that we actually agree on.
Well, and let it be known that I have played, and Commissioner Scott has communicated with me and asked me for and been given my work already on a mission statement. And I have called him twice and someone else in the police department a third time. And finally, Danielle resorted to email today because I have asked for that and tried to incorporate their input before I did this presentation, but nobody got back to me.
And that goes to Axel's point. I mean, we've been asking these things from the police department earlier in the commission, and we just haven't gotten it. So it's not a question. I don't know what the rest of the commission has been asking, but I know from our community, we've been asking for things, and that was one of the things we've asked for, and we just haven't received it.
But it's never been my desire to do this in a vacuum. I think that the development of the things that we're trying to do here absolutely requires the participation of the police, and I wish that they would give that.
Mary, did anyone share with you the state policy? That it was just released in September of last year?
Nobody gave me that, no.
I'll put it in the chat because it's public.
Thank you.
What is that, the state policy on new use of force, or?
Yep, because every law enforcement agency has to at least be at minimum use the state's policy.
Yeah, that you're talking about Article 35?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
presentation that Mary just did, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we haven't had an opportunity to review the department's policy on the use of force at all. Is that what we're saying?
No, I haven't seen it at all.
But
Okay.
I was asking, had she seen the state one? The state had just revised theirs. DCGS revised theirs back in September. So
Yeah,
I just put
because
that for you, Mary.
most departments, it's written based on a lot of how Article 35 is written. With
Right.
just some things, like you're saying with the shooting at a moving car, how you were describing that and so on. I know Mount Vernon has that in their policy.
Yeah, I got this all off the law enforcement sites. I didn't
Right.
make
Mhm.
this up myself. I
And
tried.
they do have a reporting system for any type of use of force that was actually updated before I retired to include even displaying their weapon. Like if they want to
And
take their
believe me,
nightstick out and so on,
I-
they had to now do that, which was
That's what I
reviewed by
said in the
supervisor.
thread of, and wouldn't it have been nice for me to be able to see that and not have to read through, 55 different external sources in order to find all this data and pull it together.
Yep.
I'm very interested in hearing from them.
Yep, I agree.
I'm not the enemy.
I would like to weigh in, like one thing that we discussed with Mary when she basically gave us that presentation prior to this. She just read it by us, and first of all, I want to commend her for putting all that work into it because it's quite incredible. Second, what I found interesting, we came to a thing because we know the city council has legislated it. I don't think there are a lot of people on this commission that disagree with the fact that we will need some sort of a civilian complaint review board, a CCRB. And we were discussing if possibly the scope of that needs to be a little bit widened, in the sense that it is not just a CCRB that comes in whenever there is a civilian complaint, but a more ongoing working relationship, right? Which would accomplish two things. Number one, it's not just that board against the police, right? If you always just have interactions with the police, if something negative comes up, there's never going to be a good working relationship, because whenever you show up, they know there's trouble and it's not going to set a good tone. Along those lines, what would be interesting is, because there's the use of force guidelines, and then there's always the question, how is that handled internally, right? How is that reviewed? How does internal affairs handle these things, right? And that is usually where the trouble starts, right? Because I'm sure we had a couple of problems with the Mount Vernon Police Department. I think that is fair to say. And most probably the policies that they have in place are not the problem, right? The problem is how these policies are applied and what is done with the transgressions once they occurred, right? And that is something where, in my opinion, we have not seen a lot of transparency, where we most probably didn't see a lot of follow through. So it would be interesting if we, in terms of a CCRB, have more of a civilian commission that works with the Mount Vernon Police Department and also has more transparency to basically be able to review on a constant basis, right? What is the, yeah, go ahead, Mary.
What, you weren't able to meet with us last night, or because
No.
you had the audacity to be working. The nerve of you.
I know, I dared.
But I went with Dwayne, and Anika had looked at it a little bit too. I've started something exactly like that called the Civilian, what did I call it? The Civilian Police Commission, I think, CPC, yeah. And I've pulled a lot of stuff from LAPD, some from Portland, Oregon. Another study that I'm reading is about several different police departments and different models for civilian oversight that range from extremely broad and detailed to relatively narrow. So I'm pulling all that together, and I see the CCRB at this moment, though I may change my mind, falling underneath that big umbrella where there is an ongoing interaction between the Civilian Oversight Committee and the police department that is not strictly related to complaints.
I have something to add. Mary, wonderful job as usual, by the way.
Thank you.
So 2 things that came to mind during your presentation. The first thing is those level 1 interactions that you mentioned that
Yeah.
are, what really stood out to me was their physical presence should be a determinant for crime. And I think that that level 1 interaction really, there's an added component to that when dealing with neighborhoods of different demographic of people. So for example, I actually had this conversation with the police captains a couple weeks ago when they said, if I send a police car to your home, that's a good thing. And I said, absolutely not, because my experience with police officers is very different than yours. When I see a police officer in front of my house, I immediately think that there is an issue or a problem. And even as much as I explained that to them, they really couldn't understand the feeling. The police officers are always the quote unquote good guys.
That's so take the fact at the beginning with the police are your friends, you know, and how did that change? And why did that change, you know?
Well, that was never in existence for many of us. So
well,
that was never.
Indeed. Yeah.
So that was never my experience with police officers, even being a law-abiding citizen with very few mental issues and what have you. But I think the reliance on the community relations so that those initial level 1 interactions go very smoothly is very paramount. And I've been saying that since the commission started. So very well done on that. And then the second point is about the rate of complaints. The rate of complaints are not going to reflect how many complaints the community has, because the community doesn't want to complain because their complaints, nothing happens with them.
Right.
Yeah. So it doesn't, we don't even have real statistical data as to how the officers are actually doing, because the process of the complaint and who reviews the complaints leaves a very, very flawed system and a lot to be desired.
Which takes us over to this concept that LAPD has, where much of that falls under the purview of the Civilian Oversight Commission. But that's going to be held for another conversation. Though I would love people, if you're interested in that topic, to do some research, send me some thoughts, send me some sentences, things you think should be included, because I'm really kind of, you know.
Right. Just thinking out loud, is there any point of the Civilian Complaint Board that is initiated without a civilian actually having to file a report or come to them?
I have, let me see, can I still share my screen?
That is actually what we were talking about though, right? That you have a civilian board that is not just initiated by a complaint, right? But that will review police data, use of force, right? How often is the force actually used and so on a regular basis without having to be initiated by a complaint.
And that's awesome, but by the time it reaches that level, the evidence, so to speak, is a bit tainted because you're going by statistics that are provided by the people that you're essentially investigating.
Now, Janelle, do you want me to share the small bit of work I've done on that is not at all complete?
Of course, Ms. Kingsley.
Yeah, is that all right?
Are you withholding?
Yeah, sure.
You're withholding, Mary?
Go ahead. I do want to make sure that we leave ample time for us to get into these.
I'll rush as fast as I can.
All right, Mary. Go ahead.
It's just, I think it should be something that I would like to have more people participate in, you know?
Yeah.
And this, you can see how rough my work starts out, okay? So this one is a framework for a civilian police commission. That's what I ended up calling it. It's an element of civilian and community oversight and improvement. CPCs have been instituted in one form or another across the US with varying structures, responsibilities, powers, and results. It's a compilation of ideas pulled from several scholarly articles and critiques of existing efforts, and it will pull ideas from these to suggest formation possibilities for a CPC for the city of Mount Vernon. Number of possibilities for structure and members. Ignore all of my numbers and who's going to appoint what. I have not decided that yet. I just put ideas down so I don't lose them and I change them later. I do feel that the members of the CPC should be appointed. The appointments should be made from several community sources and also from the mayor and the legislature. Maybe, I'm not sure about that yet. Only the community sources should be able to place a majority of these members. Again, the number I haven't decided yet. Rolling terms, yes, so there's no complete board turnover in any year. This is New York City composition of their CCRB. They have 13 members, all live in the city. Anybody can look that up. I'm not going to waste time reading that right now. Here's a proposed commission, 7 appoint, and you see I gave 15 members, 3 appointed by the police commissioner. They'll be law enforcement people. 3 by the mayor, the president of the city council. I may be taking them out, I'm not sure. 7 appointed by civic organization board that will be comprised of Black Council of Churches, Catholic churches. The list is not intended to be exclusive at this moment. I just put some ideas down. Or any other civic organization agreed upon by this body and approved by the mayor by consensus. Criteria for member selection. You see, I'm real green on this so far. I haven't done everything, but residents of Mount Vernon, no current law enforcement. Preference for previous knowledge of law enforcement or its adjuncts, no minimum education. Effort to have the board reflect the diversity of the city in terms of race, creed, ethnicity, residence, and income. Must be 21 years of age. Must be free of criminal convictions other than misdemeanors. 3 personal letters of recommendation. And a big one for me is a commitment to attending and participating in the meetings. We see how difficult it is to get a group of people that are real worker bees.
Amen to that.
Confidential. Structure of the Civilian Police Commission, no limit on terms, felony charges or basis for immediate removal. An advisory committee member will be tapped by the chair to fill in. There will be a chair and a co-chair. They will not be held by any elected or appointed official. You see, I'm not sure how I'm going on who's going to be on and who isn't yet. Stenographer support. I am tired of not having people to take notes, to do stuff, and broadcast to the public will be supplied by the city. Now, this is where we get real dicey, and please do not say this is what I want, because it's not what I want. This is not my final presentation.
We're going to hold you to that, Mary.
Do not. The CPC will oversee all functions of the MVPD, including hiring, firing, and promotion of officers. It will review all investigations and complaints involving police officers. It will review and approve all proposed changes to MVPD policies, develop policies with consultation of the police chief commissioner and the union, and will oversee the citizens assigned to the CCRB and review their investigations and recommendations and approve, add to, or adjust the same. And I really feel that we need a CPC and a CCRB because, as you said, it cannot be only about investigation.
Oh, that's perfect.
Input and oversight has to be separate from. And I pulled this stuff from a lot of different readings.
Mary, how do they comprise their cases of only people that file a complaint?
The CCRB?
Correct.
Let me see, what did I put?
Because that in itself is a fundamental issue with CCRBs, which is they only acquire their cases, well, and then the defense would be, oh, well, this person is just mad they got a ticket, as opposed to something in the way of, I mean, I know you can't do like a secret shopper for a police department, but something that would be.
Civilian complaint is by its definition entitled reviewing complaints of civilians. So the Citizen Oversight Commission would be the one to look at trending stats, data, where are there issues, seek out more information. Like our survey would be the purview of the Citizens Oversight Commission. Correct. But the CRB would be responsive to actual incidents that need investigation. That's how I see it. How I see it may change in the next 2 days as I read more, and it may also be adjusted by other people. The LAPD Commission, they meet every week. They have a really exhaustive police commission, and they have public comment. The Portsmouth, Maine, I think it was, police commission. The role, this is another way to look at it. The role of the Portsmouth Police Commission is not to run the day-to-day operations. The role of this commission is to provide civilian oversight and ensure safety, security, operates ethically, goals and objectives are accomplished, operating in a manner that is responsible to the taxpayer, and that they are accountable to the citizens. And some form of this restated is something I hope to incorporate in what I finish with.
Mary, this is Tamika Coverdale. How are you?
Hey, Tamika, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year to everyone. This is really great, and I thank you for all of the hard work you are doing. I am just throwing this out there. I don't know if anyone else agrees with me, but this is just my opinion. When this is formulated, I am asking that the CCRB or whatever we have not exclude people who have felony convictions. Because I don't think that just because you have a felony conviction alone, that you should either be excluded, or if you have a felony charge, anyone can be arrested.
Thing to consider.
I'm just right. So I'm throwing that out there, because you could have a felony conviction from 15, 20 years ago.
And you still have an opinion. Your
Can I
opinion
say
still matters.
something? I'm sorry, Tamika. Hi, everybody. I'm Henry Terry. I'm supervising the Snug Outreach Program here.
How you doing, Mr. Terry?
And I was actually going to say exactly what it is that you just said, because if you're saying, I have no disagreements with almost everything that she said, except for the fact that she said that they must be 21 years of age. I have no problem with that. But she said that they must have absolutely no criminal conviction or whatever the case is.
Felony conviction.
Felony conviction.
Okay.
So someone's background is loud. Are we able
Some noise in the background.
What level of empathy are they going to be able to operate from if they don't? They don't have the experience. They don't have the understanding of what it feels like to be at the opposite end of, well,
that's a good point. And
Very well stated.
And as
right.
I said, this is not finished.
Right.
And I'm only throwing it out there so you can see, A, my process, that I just throw things down.
Mary's hiding the goods on us.
And move around, and B, because I want input. I am working, I'm not saying in a vacuum, because Axel and Dwayne sat with, how many? 2 hours last night, 2.5
Yeah.
worked on stuff.
Right,
And
beautiful.
Anita did the same. So I want more people's input. So let me just finish, because you got a lot to chew on here.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's just a different level of input and a different angle of understanding that type of person would have in regards to.
Yeah, I appreciate and acknowledge your comment, and I'm not arguing your point at this time, because I have not decided that this is the way that I want to go with it.
Right.
I put stuff down when I
And
start.
she's jotting it down, and she's very responsive, by the way.
And when I go back, then I re-look at it, I'm not, I said right off the bat, the reason I wasn't going to present this, because I'm not done and I don't know where I'm going yet, but let's just finish. It gives us an opportunity to have conversation.
Awesome.
Members of the Civilian Police Commission that will serve in an advisory and adjunct capacity and may volunteer to assist the CPC in any or all of its functions as requested by the members of the CPC. And I think we had, Axel was on the advisory committee with me on the charter revision commission. And we had several other people. Peter Plotty, right here, rest in peace, was tremendous. Wouldn't you agree, Axel? I mean, we had a lot of people that Ricky Davis, he doesn't live in Mount Vernon anymore, but he's a Mount Vernonite. He did a lot of great work for us. So it's really healthy to have additional people. And plus, more minds make better decisions, Public engagement, all meetings of the CPC will take place weekly, open to the public, option to retreat to executive session if there is a need to protect a confidential informant or privileged personnel information. All meetings will be available on the city website and meeting minutes will be kept. The public will be given an opportunity to give input or complaints to the commission by either Zoom meetings, live stream, or email, and the commission members will have emails on the city server, because this is official business, and if somebody drops dead, their emails should not be lost on their personal email. It needs to be publicly available. Here's, again, I just start throwing down ideas, specify areas of subcommittees, expertise, practice for the CPC, decide on the roles of the elected officials, should they be there or not, mention it's all volunteer, define the requisite amount of time. I just put things down as they come up that I want to think about further. City of Portland policy, increased communications between police and community, leading to greater understanding of preferred policing members, identified police policy and resources, decrease misunderstandings regarding the nature of police policies, practices, and approaches, provide input on police policies and procedures that reflect community values, and assist the city council in balancing community priorities and resources by advising on police resource issues. I kind of liked what they had put, so I just took a copy and stuck it in there to incorporate it into what I wanted to do. Civilian review boards were formed in many cities, continue to function. You'll see this talks about some of the problems: lack of expertise in police tactics, strategy, and policies has caused some problems and often resulted in boards agreeing with the police department 90% or more of the time. Many review boards have been starved for resources, lacked adequate staff. Therefore, many review boards have provided difficulty providing insight or oversight. And this was important. Today, there are three main groupings of police oversight models in existence: review and appellate models, investigative and quality assurance models, and evaluative and performance-based models. And then I did a section on each: what's the review and appellate model, what's a quality investigative and quality insurance model, and what's an evaluative and performance-based model. And those are things I think we should all become familiar with to have a cogent conversation over what we'd like to see the format of our, if we propose it, because because I think it's a good idea doesn't mean y'all are going to agree, but I do think we should have some kind of police oversight commission. You can call it something else if you want, but it seems to me that the way the world is going is that there is civilian oversight of the police department, and I do believe they work for us.
Hey, Danielle, real quick, because I know you want to break out, real quick.
Yep.
I'm in support of this. I really like it, but I'm also, we got to be wide-eyed and have a clear vision on what this is all about. We're asking for another legislation for another level of oversight to a police department that is going to see a lot of this as taking away their autonomy. And we're going to have to defend it. And I'm prepared to defend it. I think it's something that we should do. But you got to be clear-eyed on this. There's going to be some serious pushback when you start talking about human resource issues and things along that line, which they're going to naturally feel that that's something that they should have. So I'm all for this, but let's be clear-eyed about this. This will be a fight.
It's just not a fight from the police department. It's a political fight as well.
Exactly.
Because now you're taking that power
Exactly.
away from who knows who and so on and everything else.
Yep.
And more than from the police department, but definitely.
So Tamika and Henry, thank you so much for feedback input. So I think what is clear, right, is Mary's looking for that type of input. So if you guys want to connect with her offline as well, if there are any additional comments that someone would like to make right now, please go ahead, feel free to do so. I do want to jump into some breakouts and just kind of develop. The goal for the breakout sessions, I guess, in this meeting is to develop a roadmap how we're going to move forward, right? So we have 4 subcommittees: policy and oversight, and you see Mary, Dwayne, Axel. Sorry, Coach D. Axel and Anika in one, and building confidence and sustainability is another one. Building trust and legitimacy is another one, and recruiting and supporting excellent personnel is another one. So would love to break out into these sessions. Just briefly, I would like to show you what we did initially before we started developing and working on the individual policies. We kind of developed an outline. Can everyone see this here?
Yeah.
All right, we developed an outline on so much of this information is what Axel was talking about. This is some of the information we need to actually, make informed decisions, right? But it's what are best practices? And I can share this document if people want to see this as well, but it's what is best practices? It's what are the key policies that we need to make sure that we're recommending, making sure that the police department actually has. And that's in each subcommittee. So this isn't exhaustive by any means, but it is just like some type of framework so we know what we're working with. and, you know, we can work within the framework. Any questions or anything like that?
I have some information on the survey results.
Absolutely.
Oh, yay.
Survey, yeah.
So so I spoke with Daniel Terry, who's who's head of the communications team for the mayor. I'm just gonna read what he sent me. So the email blast, so it was sent out to everyone that is that has applied, well, basically put in their email address to receive information from the city. So the email blast went out to over 9,000 subscribers.
Wow.
1,648 opened the email, and about 400 have actually clicked the link to the actual survey. And as far as posting it to the website, his first initial post didn't react well with the site. However, he has another method and he will be attempting tomorrow morning to do that.
Thank you for that update, Iris Lady.
Mhm.
Can you let Daniel know that if he needs a code in order to embed it into the website, that I'd be able to provide him that? So instead of him just posting the link itself, it can actually be a part of the website function, and I can provide him with what he needs to get that done, if that's
Yeah.
something he wants to explore.
And I have to say, Anika is just a rock star. We, again, all the four of us worked on the survey for sure, but you did a beautiful job, Anika. Really, all props to you.
Thank you. I'm not going to take all the props, but I appreciate it.
Along those lines, just one thing, Aris Lady or everybody, what I would suggest is that, because we actually had some pretty good reactions already, and Nika, I think, may have some numbers on that. Everybody also on the commission, right? If you don't have it not completed, of course, complete it second. The link is out. If you don't have it, contact any of us and send it to everybody who you know in Mount Vernon, right? Because we might have to do that multiple times, right? Or just get on people's nerves until they're like, oh my God, hopefully these people stop emailing me, right? So we might not get it with the first wave. So along those lines, we should also be prepared to maybe like give it an initial push right now, then wait for a couple of days. But I think we should have a second push where we try to send it out. I don't know if it is Aris Lady, if it's possible to just send a reminder again, right? Because some people might need more than one email just to get that done.
Yeah. The survey is open.
Yeah, I'll send the link over again to everyone tonight.
I can also put it in the chat if you all are interested. But we're leaving this open until January 31st. So we have just shy of, what's that, 2 weeks?
2 weeks, solid 2 weeks.
Over 2 weeks. To get as many responses as we possibly can. Right now, we're at about 736 responses. So we've had a really positive turnout. And we just want to get as many people to participate and respond as possible. That's the goal.
Thank you, Anita. All right, so I guess it's subcommittee time. So are there any volunteers? So I do need someone to take notes in the meetings and possibly just lead the group going forward for the subcommittees. And wanted to know if there were any volunteers. So for the recruiting and supporting excellent personnel, is there anyone who would love to take lead of that group, take notes and coordinate any off meetings on our off weeks or anything like that? Don't all volunteer at once, guys. No? All right. How about the building trust and legitimacy? Well, we're active tonight.
I am horrible at taking notes. I just want to say that.
Okay. So how about this? Maybe we can split the role, right? Maybe you can lead the group and someone else can take notes. Are you open to that?
That works for me.
Okay.
You want to do that, Henry? We'll
Oh, yes, absolutely. If I get to work with you, absolutely. Yes.
All right. And what group is that?
I was talking about building trust. Which one did you want to do, Henry?
That's the exact one that was on my mind.
All
Okay.
right, so I'll take the notes, but you facilitate?
Okay, that works
Okay.
out.
All right.
Awesome. I love the teamwork. How about building confidence and sustainability? Did I do that one already? All right. I'm gonna go again. Recruiting and supporting excellent personnel. We need people to do it. We have to get the work done. So people, please jump in where you
I can
think.
take the notes, but who will be the facilitator?
Okay, I like that. Anybody?
Dwayne keeps laughing.
Well, we're already tied up in the policy.
Yeah.
An oversight.
Pretty heavy. I don't see
And then we
myself.
we getting ready to do the code. We're getting ready to do the code for the CCRB too, and it's a lot.
Being able to.
I just want to give a shout out to Dwayne, because there was only a draft of the proposed CCRB legislation that existed, and there was a photocopy, and he sat down and he transcribed the entire
Yeah.
thing. I don't know how many pages it was, my 10, 20. He did a lot of work, so.
Yeah. We have some people really stepping up, so.
All right, so I'll just start calling through names and see which groups you all want to go to. Vincent Stefano, which group would you like to be in?
Building and trust, building trust and legitimacy.
All right. Yeah. All right, Sylvia Tyree. Did I butcher your last name?
Yeah, building and trust.
Building trust. David Patterson.
Wherever you need me. I'm usually the one that balances out the group.
All right, let's get you in building confidence and sustainability. We had Brother Arthur Rose.
Building trust.
Who else do we have? Amy.
Building confidence.
All right. And ours lady, you're hopping off, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So the others I have in, so is there anyone who can join Kathy in recruiting and supporting excellent personnel? Preferably from the Build and Trust group, because we have.
I'll go to recruiting. Vinny
Okay.
Stefano, I'll go to recruiting.
Thank you. And I'll hop in with you guys. I'll also hop into the Building Confidence and Sustainability. And
I'll also join the recruiting group as well.
You're joining. All right. So then Tamika needs a leader. Brother Rose, are you stepping up?
Counting on you.
Brother Rose, you mind leading the Building Trust and Legitimacy group?
I didn't know that meant that I would have to lead the other group.
Oh yeah, so we're breaking out now.
I'll stay where I am.
Okay.
Danielle, just for clarity for everyone who's breaking out into sessions right now, are these the groups that people are going to have to stick with for the balance of the time and essentially have to type up their portion of the proposal to contribute to the larger draft?
So ideally, I would love people to stay in these groups and kind of usher the group along. I feel like if people continue to move, that we'll never get like a final product, right? But I do think you can jump into some groups, give some input, because I think, like Anita, you're in policy and oversight. You'll have some input in, building confidence and sustainability. So if you want to hop into some other groups, feel free, especially since I feel like the policy and oversight group has done a lot of work so far. So if you want to hop in another group right now, feel free to do so. All right. All right. So right now I have Building Confidence is Amy and David Patterson. Building Trust is Brother Rose, Henry Terry, Sylvia Tyree, Tamika Coverdale, and Recruiting and Supporting Excellent Personnel is Kathy and Vincent Stefano. All right. All right, so bear with me. I'm not that tech savvy. Andam, do you want to be in policy and oversight, or would you like to be in another group?
Staying in policy and oversight.
All right. So I'm going to open the rooms. Feel free to go, and I'll hop in a few.
And how much time do we have?
So until about 7:45, 7:50-ish.
Okay.
All right. So it should be popping up. Let me know if it hasn't. All right. I see people leaving. Were you able to, Vincent, are you able to go over? No, nothing yet? Let's see if I can move you manually. How about now? Nope. Okay. I suck at this, so let me. Too close. So Anika, you haven't moved either, huh?
No, I'm here.
I don't know how this works, honestly.
Yeah.
We might as well have our own breakout room here.
So, all right, look at the bottom of your screen. Is there a breakout room?
It doesn't say anything.
No.
No. It says invite, mute me, raise hand.
No, next to like you have a share screen button down there.
Yeah.
Share screen, yeah.
No, don't press that. But there should be a breakout or groups down below, right to the right of it. Nothing.
Participants, it says us three, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move you to another room, see if that works. Yeah, this is not my forte.
Kathy's back.
Yeah, so
I was in a room all by myself.
I know we were trying to
Not
get
my
Vincent
fault.
over to you.
Not my fault.
I'm like, what's going on?
All right, let me pull Ara's lady out really quickly. And see if she can assist me. Hey, Ara's lady, sorry. I know you were like deep in conversation over there. I'm not sure how to move Vincent and Anika to the rooms. It says
They were just asking where Anika was.
Yeah, so I gave them the same invite as everyone else, but it says that they haven't joined, and I want to know if you can assist me.
On the side, well, for how it looks on my iPad, we have the option to choose which breakout room to join.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see that.
Are you guys on the iPad or a
It's on
computer?
the bottom. It says breakout rooms.
I'm on my Mac and I don't see it.
Yeah, I'm on a laptop.
Do you
I
see
don't see it.
switch to gallery view? Or where it says switch camera? Mine has it like all
Mine says,
in the
yeah,
same
it has
area.
view, gallery view. Yep.
Do you see where it says join
But it-
breakout room?
No. Mm. And I can share my screen. I don't know
Weird.
with direction, but
It's right next to, it says share screen, record right on the bottom. It says share screen, record, and then it says breakout rooms.
no, it doesn't say that on mine.
All right. Well, maybe this is our breakout room right here. Anika, I honestly don't know how to move you over to that group, other than you all pressing it. Yeah, because I have you assigned. It just says you haven't joined quite yet. Maybe I'll broadcast a message.
Share screen, record, and reaction.
Yeah, I'm lost. I don't know what to do other than maybe I'll move you to another room and then move you back, and let's see if that helps. Yeah. Guys, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So Anika, do you mind just, so Kathy and Vincent, we're supposed to be in recruiting and supporting excellent personnel. Would you mind just contributing to this conversation for today?
Okay.
And Aristotle, do you want to go back to policy and oversight, or?
I can stay here.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, Vincent, I'm gonna let you lead the way. I'm gonna hop into Amy's and David Patterson's room to see if they need any help, and I'll come back. Is that cool?
Good.
All right, I'll be back.
All right, so I guess we're focusing on recruiting and supporting excellent personnel. The last group I was a part of was training, so I'm a little lost. I missed the last meeting, so I don't know where we went when we ended up in different groups. So the one thing I know about what our recruiting is, what the city doesn't do is hold classes for any prospective people who are going to take the police exam. And I think that's very important. You know, it's very easy to recruit by going out and reaching schools and colleges, and they do go to a lot of colleges all over. So that kind of excludes Mount Vernon residents. If we're trying to get Mount Vernon residents to be able to get hired, and that's the philosophy, then we're going to have to do a better job with preparing them for the exam. And it's not just the written exam. You know, we're talking about interviews, we're talking about the psychological exam and so on. So however we can improve that, we would really need to see how they're handling it now in order to see what adjustments need to be made.
And actually, the mayor tonight, she's having a live Zoom with the Westchester Rockland Guardians and the Vulcan Society, speaking about this, the recruitment to PD and FD.
Well,
at 8.
Like I expressed before, and it's happening, I think a couple of guys had left recently as well, is we lose officers all the time. Whether they want to say it's because of the pay, whether they want to say because it's the workload or whatsoever. They recently hired a bunch of officers. They had to take them off a list that was not a Mount Vernon list.
Right.
Which Mount Vernon does. Mount Vernon will take the lowest score from a resident before they take the highest score of a non-resident. So they do a lot to try to get Mount Vernon residents. Right now, we're taking off of a list that doesn't even have anything to do with Mount Vernon. So right away, we're taking people that weren't even trying to get on the police department in Mount Vernon because of political issues with the controller. She didn't fund the civil service, so they weren't able to give a test. We couldn't even afford to give physical agility a test to the last class.
Yeah,
I think
it's been a couple years.
Yeah, they had to kind of sneak them in and get a free exam from other departments that were holding there. So unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that.
So just so that I'm clear on what you were suggesting, Vinny, you were saying like for there to be some sort of prep, almost like a PD prep where individuals can come in. Okay. I think that is a great idea.
You know, I mean, and I believe they used to have stuff like that, and that's all done by the civil service. They're the ones, they do it with their funds. So whether they're not funded for it or whatever, but you know, they're used to be, you know, just coming in cold and taking a police test, just like anything else. You know, you got to be prepared for it. And if we want our Mount Vernon residents to, we're making it a priority to hire Mount Vernon residents first. Well, then, you know, let's prepare them for that. which is another reason why they never set a standard that you have to have at least had an associate's degree, because they know that their level of recruitment would go down because not a lot of people are striving to get those degrees. So that's, other departments you would have to have at least a minimum associate's degree. They believe the state police is one, but they don't have problems with recruitment and issues like Mount Vernon is having, where people are just fleeing to other departments. So that is a big issue. But yeah, definitely preparing officers to take the test and focusing on Mount Vernon residents and so on.
Yeah, there's been, at the department head meeting, the first one for this year, or monthly, Sylvia from Civil Service had mentioned that there was actually a little rise in Mount Vernon residents that want to take the test.
Yeah.
So hopefully it keeps rising. And after tonight's conversation, hopefully more people are more aware that they have the opportunity to do that. So.
Yeah, and I know they do hold a youth civilian police academy. They do that, which is awesome, because I know there's some departments up where I live that, either you have an Explorer program or they have a youth academy,
youth council,
to see if it'll pique the interest and geared towards possibly going to school to take up criminal justice and so on. We definitely need to encourage that. We need to hire qualified officers that come in with some sort of maturity and some sort of education.
We know when is the next test in Mount Vernon?
I don't think they've been able to schedule one, because maybe they should have been able to, because I think they did get funded. I think they did get some money restored. I'm not sure, but they haven't given a test because there was no money to hold the test. They had no funds. The controller was holding the money from the civil service department, which is why we're hiring off of I believe a Westchester County list, meaning that these officers are already on a list to go to another job.
That's why at the last swearing in, it was 2 females. Everybody was like Italian background. Why there was no people of color. It wasn't a good look for the city. But
and at that point, we would have been on the non-residents list anyway, and it probably would have appeared that way anyway, because that's what ends up happening. We took a guy, I remember interviewing him for the job. He had 100 on the Yonkers test. And even 100 on the Yonkers test, you're waiting, because they don't get to the 95s or the 90s in Yonkers. And he was a Yonkers resident. So he honestly said, I'm taking the first job.
You get to when did they pick the people with the high?
Because Yonkers is such a desirable job to go to because of money.
So you mean that a lot of people score high on those tests? That's why they don't get to the 95?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for whatever reason, when they think that, a lot of people on those Yonkers lists,
well, I wonder what they're, doing differently in terms of recruitment and how we can potentially investigate that and see how we can apply that or scale that for Mount Vernon. Also, recruitment makes me think of what happens beyond recruitment, which is retention, right? We talk about how a lot of officers have resigned for different reasons. And I'm not versed on this, I would have to do my research. So I'm gonna ask you, Vinny, what do you think as far as retention methods can be done by MVPD to make sure that officers stay on and want to continue to grow with the department? So not just stay as officers, but also to grow in their path,
Yeah, a lot of time, I was there for almost 30 years, 29 plus years. So a lot of things that I've seen is, you get somebody that's running the show, whether they're the mayor, they're the commissioner, whatever. You have favorites within the department. So we need to eliminate that type of atmosphere where just because I know so-and-so, I'm moving on up here, I'm moving on up there. And I'll tell you right now, there is a big divide within that department because of the color of people's skin. There is a lot. This whole country, it's the police department is hit by it as well.
Of course.
This whole political thing. But retention wise, of course, everybody's going to say pay. We are one of the lowest paid and overworked police departments. So we have to find a way to scale that up. And we know we just can't jump to some sort of top pay.
Or not to cut you off, but you know, I've had other conversations in other groups about how pay is important, right? But for people who do want to do this job or do have a certain level of education, money isn't everything. Like there's other incentives to a job other than pay. Like you could get paid well and still want to quit your job because maybe it's a shitty working environment, you know? So the money won't even keep you there.
Right.
So like what other incentives can be put in place in addition to increasing the pay scale that would keep officers there? And if the culture's crappy, like that's one thing to look into, like improving the culture.
Well, that is another issue. Culture is a big issue.
Yeah.
You know, the department has gone through a lot over the last year or two, or actually before that. You know, when you go back to the Richard Thomas administration and everything that happened towards the end of his administration, we were caught in the middle of everything. It was a nightmare. And I was an administrator at that point, and it was a nightmare. You know, we just couldn't do our jobs because everything had to come from the mayor's office, which is why I love what the current mayor Sean Patterson Howard is doing. You know, she's putting people in place to make these decisions, and she's not micromanaging them, and she's not using them as her own force. So that has really killed morale over the last year or two. And now they have this transition, and now they have, you know, it's hard for police officers to have outside people come in and now take over. You know, yes, Commissioner Scott is from the police department, but there's very few people there that recall working with him. And you also have a deputy commissioner who had no police experience, which I had conversations with her about that's not going to be an easy transition for police officers. So there has to be some sort of trust. They have to build that sort of trust. And you just have a very young and immature police department right now. And you're absolutely right. We need to retain them. We need to figure out how to retain them. You know, to me, to a young person who's possibly hasn't gone to school or maybe only has a few credits, maybe we could partner with Mercy College or something like that to get some sort of discount for police officers and try to encourage them to pursue that degree. You know, it only benefits the police department. And these are all things that could possibly, you know, keep people here. There's no guarantee. Some people just come here with the mindset. Let me tell you something, Mount Vernon, very busy job. Okay. I was born and raised in Mount Vernon. I had a commitment to stay in Mount Vernon, and I did. It's my city. And we need that. We need people to own this job. They need to own it. If you're gonna, I used to tell guys, listen, I get it. I've been here long enough. I know guys are leaving. But while you're here being paid by the city of Mount Vernon, do your job.
Right.
Do your job. Not just sit around not giving a crap because you already know that, you know, 6 months from now, you'll be parked somewhere in the woods doing nothing, getting paid more or whatever. So we need to build up the leadership. We need to get our supervisors. They need to take leadership schools and stuff like that. So it's a lot.
I have a strong belief that, you know, the culture is usually dictated by or fostered by the leaders, right? Either they're directly like pushing a certain culture, or they're complicit, like they're not speaking up and they're not actually like forcing a change to shift the culture. So I feel like culture is a top-down thing that we have to hold supervisory staff accountable for. I have a lot of ideas just about incentives from my personal and professional experience. I don't really know how it translates to police work, but you know, offering continuing education opportunities is one of them for sure. Also, when I think about like acknowledgement, right? Like people, and I don't know if something that's done, but people want to feel acknowledged for their work and recognize the things that they're doing. And if there can be sort of a system and a structure for that to like give officers a pat on the back for
not just a tweet saying, "Oh yeah, you got this gun out the street."
right, like
Right.
you know,
So
in
they
whatever
do,
form that comes in.
they do have a lot more in place than they used to.
Mhm.
Okay. So, you know, early on in my career, a supervisor had to write you up. If you did something well, the supervisor had to write you up. Well, you know, there's a lot of supervisors that had their chosen few that they would write them up for every little thing. And then you had other supervisors that didn't feel like it met that being written up. So you had guys walking around with bars up to here. And you had guys with no bars because it depended on what supervisor they worked for. So now they created a system where you can actually put yourself in for, you can write yourself up, and it gets reviewed by a committee, by the administration, and they can review for awards. So they have gotten better with that.
Even
you know,
and I don't know if, and let me know, and taking that a step further, not just reporting yourself, like if you feel like you did something wrong or writing yourself up, but even like annual appraisals or annual reviews, to have it be like self-reported, where you think you performed well this year. Like, you know, you chart your own experience in that sense. Because coming from like a healthcare setting, like that's something that we often did, where we would like rate ourselves, you know, out of a list of like, you know, on a scale of like 1 to 5, how well you think you did with customer service, how well you think you did with teamwork, how well you think you did with whatever, and actually give us the room to not just rate ourselves, but to provide examples.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea because
sometimes your supervisor doesn't know all the small little extra details you've done or the ways in which you've gone above and beyond.
like, I'll give you an example. Every year we do an evaluation on every person that works in the building. They get an evaluation by their supervisor, right? So now I'm running the detective division. Nika, you get assigned to me a month before these evaluations are due.
I don't know your work.
Now they tell me to do the evaluation on you because you're assigned to me. Most of my evaluations used to say, based on my 1 month experience with Anika, I can say this, and this. It's horrible. You're absolutely right.
And then that discourages the officer, because it's like, well, if I'm going to be transferred and my supervisor doesn't even know the breadth of my work, then it's like, you know, it lowers morale again.
Yeah, and people, a lot of people, unfortunately, will have an opinion about Anika and spread that opinion to other people. And less intelligent people would be like, oh, Anika's this, Anika's that. No, they don't base everything on their experience with Anika. So you end up with a reputation of being disgruntled or being this, because I learned that from being a supervisor, that I would always base on my experience with that person. Because people will come up to, how do you deal with this person in your unit? I don't know. She works well for me. She does this, she does that, she does, because people don't take the time to understand.
Right.
That's another problem within the department. Like, you can get labeled somebody who's always late for work. Has anybody ever came to you and say, hey, listen, what can we do for you? Why are you late? Next thing you know, we find out that you're taking care of your mom before you come to work, or you have this issue. All these things that nobody, you know, we have to show that we care for them and that we're there to help them. Yeah, exactly.
Positive work environment.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example for myself. My son, 13 years old, was diagnosed with cancer. And I went to them and I said, listen, I'm not coming back to work. You know, I had the time, so on, whatever. So there came a time where I ran out of time. I didn't have any more time. So I said, you know, everybody volunteered. They were going to give me a sick day. All I needed was 30 days. They said, no, we can't do it. So you're not going to get paid. I said, okay, no problem. So they said, okay, you coming back to work? I said, no, I'm staying home and I'm taking care of my son until his last treatment. And I was like, I don't understand why you guys don't seem to understand. Now I'm on the job over 20 years at this point, 20 years dedicated to that job where people are leaving left and right. And that's the treatment I got. So now when I decided to come back to work, they reassigned me to another division.
Was that something that could have been handled within the department, or was that like a thing with like the union and all that kind of funny weird?
No, I went straight to the department. It came straight from the administration. They said I wasn't the one that was sick, so they will not allow anybody to talk. voluntarily give me
But
sick
your
time.
son is your dependent, so that doesn't make any sense.
And that's what I'm talking about when you get that type of treatment. Now here you are, you have a year and a half on the job. You have other departments that want you. You look, you see somebody with 20 plus years, born and raised in Mount Vernon, stay to work in the city, and he gets treated like that. Are
I'm
you
leaving.
going to decide to stay?
No, I'm leaving.
Right. So,
Because I also don't want to work somewhere where my coworkers are unhappy to show up to work either.
yeah, and I had to work with a lot of people like that, but I knew what I was there for. You know, I knew what my job was, and you know, I had some bosses that mistreated me for years, just based on whatever, you know, whether I spoke up, gave my own opinion or whatever. But you know, I'm hoping that changes. A lot of the old time supervisors are gone now. There's a new set of people that have now taken over that realm where a lot of the negativity is gone. So I hope that hopefully they, you know, now I think they're going to be working steady squads with each other again. But you know, it's like you said, it's not just about money.
Right.
If it was, I mean, the whole world would be a lot different. That is definitely.
Yeah, I mean, who becomes a police officer thinking that they're gonna, you know, get rich anyway? You know, you know what it is. I mean, how many social workers going into social workers thinking, oh man, by the time I'm done with my career, I'm gonna own, you know, come on.
Yeah.
But,
Yikes.
but yeah, I mean, you know, like you said, when we talk about, you know, if we do an overview, if we talk about what we're, you know, with providing people with training to take the test, preparing them for interviews and so on. That's definitely a program that the city should take on. And Deputy Commissioner Lackett, I believe she has done a lot when it comes to the wellness, because that was something I was going to speak up when it came to this. Because, you know, if you do the research about suicides and police officers, the rate is so high and nobody's paying attention to it. And I think we need to catch it before.
What do you think about either, so again, going back to this sort of like self-documented system, right? So if people are able to sort of chart their own progress when it's time for annual review, what do you also think about like a sort of system where people can maybe chart their mental health? So I'm not sure if you guys do, or if there's like a psych eval process pre-hire, or like for onboarding. But if there could be some sort of follow-up while, you know, you're on the job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to the Deputy Commissioner about, and I actually had a meeting with her, is that there should be peer mentors. Okay, there should be somebody from the job that, not even just for mental health, but just in general, because the one thing, you know, you don't want officers that lack confidence in their ability to do their job, and they're always relying on a supervisor to come to the scene to tell them what to do. We can't have that. You know, you have to make decisions. Now what happens, you're relying on that supervisor, he can't get there, and so on. So they definitely need to set up some sort of peer mentoring. And there also should be some sort of debriefing and stuff like that when it comes to these high level situations that officers have been in. I mean, if I tell you the things that I've seen and done in the 29 years of my job, you think that, you know, that I should be in the cuckoo, you know, bin right now, because you do see a lot. And the problem is that most officers suppress that.
Right.
You know, when you see officers on a shooting scene and they're smiling and they're laughing, and be honest with you, what do you want them to do? Because it's not easy standing out there when you know there's a body. I remember my first body. I was 21 years old. I was mad as hell. There was a gas station guy who always sat on the chair. Drove by him. We waved. I was still being trained by a senior officer. We went 3 blocks down. We heard a gunshot. We turned back around. Boom. Guy was shot. Took 1 shot to the belly, bleeding out, dying on the street. So
So
that's just one example. So
I know DC Lacquer now has, like you said, a program where
mhm.
when incidences like that happen, it's mandatory for the officer to check in with somebody or report on their status within 24 hours. And I had a one-off conversation with her that there should be additional follow-up post that 24-hour check-in with a supervisor or with someone. Yeah, I don't know if it's 3 months down the road. I don't know if it's 6 months down the road. I don't know if it's at their annual review, but there should be another hard stop where the officer should feel comfortable, or there should be an initiated discussion to follow up on that,
So
because
we should have
24 hours, you're probably still in
right.
shock too, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah. Oh yeah.
until like
Oh
weeks
yeah.
or months
Because
down the road.
right off the bat, you have to suppress everything. You know,
Yeah,
we had
survival.
one of my last things the summer before I retired. We had, what was she, 4 or 5 years old? She ran into the middle of the street and got run over by the van twice. And so we get there, and it just looked like a doll laying in the street.
Oh my
With
God,
like,
right?
oh yeah, it was over on North Fifth. So right away you have to now you can't stand there, you can't cry over the baby and stuff like that. You just have to. So you suppress it. How long do you suppress it for? To me, the department should have not only mental health evaluations, whether it's yearly, every 2 years or whatever. There should also be physical evaluations. You get on the job, you get out of the academy, boom, you put on 50 pounds and
And then
now what? So, mental, physical, all that.
yeah,
There should
and
be
all of
policies
these
on all that.
also help to like destigmatize some of the the culture around having to suppress showing up at work and being this like tough person, and understanding that there's humanity in this job. So
Absolutely.
it preserves.
And I don't walk around with a smile on my people to this day. Still be like, oh man, you always look mad, you always look angry. I was like, I don't know. It's never been me to walk around like and that's what I try to say. I don't work at Disney. I didn't work at Disney, so I'm not walking around paying to smile. So we have to, some of these things, some of these officers that are bad actors, not all of them are because of who they are. It's because of what they turned into, because based on what they see and do every day. So to criticize something that happened with somebody, there should be any of these things. It should be some sort of there has to be background to all these incidents.
Right.
All these police interactions. That's why I wish the federal government would do a national study on all these officer involved deaths. Where like find out, don't just break down what happened in those 5 minutes. Let's break down what happened on both sides, to evaluate how it got to that point where the officer took somebody's life. Was this person should have never been on the job and was just scared? I mean, because I worked with a lot of people, they were just scared. I used to go to roll call, I used to look around and be like, oh man, if I get into anything, these guys this one ain't doing this, this one ain't doing that. Some people that just ain't built for it. So they, that just goes deeper, because how are we gonna solve the situation if we don't know what's really causing it?
Right.
Some people just have hate in them. Some people are racist. Some people are this. Some people. It's very easy, but can we prove what the real cause is? Why an officer does something like that?
Not just evaluations, also, but they also have to like start the trainings and have follow-up trainings to see like what these officers learn and all that stuff. Like, I think we're very behind with that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do debriefings on every situation, and the supervisors should debrief. Like, for example, if we have a shooting or something like that, it happened on the 4 to 12. The 4 to 12 bosses go home at 11 o'clock. Okay, now all the 4 to 12 officers are handing most of their reports in after 12 o'clock. So now a whole nother set of supervisors who had nothing to do with the whole situation are now reading and signing off on these reports. And now they don't know what that officer did, saw, needs to speak about. There should be some sort of debriefing, because we don't know what the officers are going through. And 9 times out of 10, none of the officers really want to talk about it, but if no one asks them, they're definitely not going to talk about it. So
It's good talk.
Yeah.
A lot of work to be done.
yeah, yeah.
So what's next steps? How do we get this into recommendations for the mayor?
No, you guys are the brains.
That's you, Vinny. You're the brain.
No. I'm just here with. I just have the experience. I'm talking from experience. 'Cause
Experience matters.
Oh no, absolutely. I know, but no, I mean it's just getting to them and letting them know what our recommendations, what we recommend.
Welcome back, everybody. Do we have everybody? So yeah, I just wanted to pull everybody back. I've jumped into a few rooms, great conversations going on. And I just want to remind everyone that, our goal with the commission is to have some recommendations on paper that we can, put forth to be approved by or ratified by the city council, and eventually to be, implemented by the mayor and the police department. So I want to open the floor. Are there any things that people want to share that they discussed in the group, want some group input? Because we are working as a collective before we kind of close out and talk about next steps.
Well, I know in our group, we decided we're gonna put 2 feet in on this civilian police collaborative.
Okay.
So we're gonna take on 2 things. We're gonna start restart the draft code for the CCRB, as well as the civilian patrol collaborative.
Okay. Awesome. And so I know there were some comments on that. So if you all are having side meetings about this civilian police commission, if we could share it with the group, because I know there were at least 2 comments on some recommendations or suggestions based off of, I think, Tamika's work and Henry's work. So I think they'll be have some great input for you all.
And I forgot one thing, because Axel actually hit this hard about he's gonna be working on transparency from the police department.
Okay. And what does that look like to you, Axel?
So I'm thinking transparency in a couple of ways, right? First of all, I mean, we were talking about, for example, that there are no regular press releases, right? They don't have an active webpage, Facebook page, right? Transparency is not only one-sided, right? It's also back and forth, right? But that there needs to be definitely, at the end of the day, transparency is communication, right? And also, and I'm not seeing this right now, right? If you want to know what's going on, for example, we looked at the use of force, right? Use of force policy should be somewhere on the webpage, right? So then people can just look it up, right? The policies, that is something that should just be available information, right? That should not be a secret. That should be something that I can just find, right? And we know we had quite a few homicides last year, right? And nobody knew because there were no press releases. There was no, and I know that is not very popular, but you need to inform your community what is going on, right? And there's not much happening on that front, right? And I used to be, or still am up to a certain point, a journalist, right? I did the police beat. There were press conferences, and there were statistics, and all of that stuff was openly available. And even we as a commission have trouble getting it out. The police department, that's not how it should be working. So I'm going to make some recommendations along those lines. Another thing that we discussed about this police collaboration commission, CCRP kind of setup, maybe that could also be part of that, right? That, for example, we have a standing civilian committee that works together with the police that also just informs the community, maybe with monthly newsletters, right? What is going on right now? What is the police department actually working on right now in terms of their reform efforts, right? I know this police academy that Coach Dwayne went through, right? We knew about it, right? I had never heard of that before, right? How comes, right? This should be something that should be much more communicated. And so I think there's quite a bit of work to be done on that front.
Nick, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, Axel said a couple of things that I wanted to piggyback off of, but yes, like the PD or the city of Mount Vernon having more ownership of the messaging and the way that the information is disseminated, like it not just being picked up by local news channels and it being and it being spun however, like we actually having control of that. So whether it's newsletters, whether it's via social media, restarting Mount Vernon Public Access Channel would be another avenue. So there's ways that the city can control that messaging and have like back and forth and open engagement with the community. But there was something else I wanted to say too. I can't remember.
And I think another thing, and Anika, we noticed your absence, by the way. Another thing that Axel was going to talk about was the laws requiring open meeting and making sure that we're all in compliance with that.
Anyone?
It's not just open meetings, it's basically also kind of like the anti-transparency, right? There are laws governing that.
Yeah.
And I mean, along those lines, for example, right? When did we have the last police town hall?
Oh, I remember what I was gonna say.
Crickets, right? Never. So that is something that they could totally do, right? I mean, it's just say like, right now the only town hall that is, of course, we have COVID, one thing, but you can do it on Zoom. You don't even need to leave your house in the cold, right? So the only town hall that we have right now is basically the city council meeting, right? Neither the mayor nor the police department, any other of the forces there are seeking any direct interactions with the public, right? That is not good enough. And so I think that should also be part of it. That's part of transparency and interaction.
Did you see the city council was canceled tonight due to
I just saw it, yeah.
Due to a COVID issue.
Transparency, on the survey, if you guys haven't taken it, you'll see that there are questions asking about transparency and if people are aware of misconduct in MVPD or what their thoughts are rather on misconduct in MVPD. And there's an option where people can select if they're unaware, and that has actually like the highest percentage. Like most people are unaware of any misconduct in the MVPD. So that also speaks to the lack of transparency that is, happening right now.
Any additional thoughts from the other rooms or?
Yes, I'll speak on the building trust and legitimacy. It was a great group, so many comments, thoughtful comments, and I'll have to put this into an outline format. But what was extremely important is that there needs to be trust between the police and the community. And what we did not do, we did not put everything on the police, saying, oh, the police have to do this, the police have to do this. Yes, it is important for the police to know the community, because when they know the community, then the community can have trust with them. You don't necessarily have to like someone to respect them, but if that respect is there, so much more can get done. Oftentimes when you have that respect between the community and the police, certain situations can be diffused, there won't be issues. But also what we said, and this is extremely important, the community oftentimes complains about what the police does not do. So we thought about, well, what if we extend an olive branch? If there are community events, we invite the police to those events. We'll invite. If they say no, that they don't want to come, then we have to go to, a higher level. But we do believe that if we interact with the police more, that respect will be there, and that will build trust and legitimacy. So we took it upon ourselves to extend the olive branch.
Tamika, if I could ask you and Henry a question.
Yes.
Especially right along the line of what you were talking about, how did you guys feel, and what could we do in terms of that picture that was put up by the city of the new recruits and how it didn't really look like us? How does trust, what can we do with trust?
We discussed that. We discussed that because we took that ownership.
That's
I think
right.
oftentimes, not I think, but we often think and say, oh, well, these police officers don't come for our community. But is our community applying for those positions? Or is the community saying, oh, well, forget the police don't do anything for us anyway, so why would we be involved? In order for us to see what we want, we have to put forth the effort. I mean, we have to. You just can't say, oh, well, the police, this, they, you know, they don't respect us. They come from other communities. And Sergeant Stefano can, you know, he knows about this. Are we applying? Are we applying?
We discussed that with the recruiting,
okay.
with recruiting.
We have to have those conversations at our homes. Those conversations are conversations that start at home, because the distrust and the distaste that our children go out in the community with for the police, it started at home. So we gotta start having those conversations and letting them know that you can't make change standing watching. If you want change to happen, you have to implement change. You got to put yourself in position to be a part of what makes the change come forth. So we have to encourage them to apply for these jobs, and not these jobs, these critical positions in our community. Because it's not just a job. Being a police officer is not a job. You hold a critical position in your community when you're a police officer.
Yeah. I used to tell rookies that I would train, I said, if you took this just for a job, please go and apply at the post office.
I tell
Hey, easy now.
Oh, now we know how they all ended up at the post office. That's your fault.
My point is that this is a job that you have to want to do. You have to have the compassion to do. You know, that you deal with a lot of as a police officer. I mean, when I first got on, when we walked 3rd Street, we used to have to check the buildings up top on the rooftops to make sure there was no bottles up there for anybody to throw at us, because that was happening. Okay, how many jobs can say that they have to go to work and have bottles thrown at them? So these are all the obstacles that officers deal with. You know, you have to want to do this job. You have to want to help people. You have to want to be there for people. And
it's the same for me in nursing. I'd said the same thing to other people that come in saying, "Oh, it's a great job. You know, you make a lot of money. They don't belong there."
Yeah,
So there's a lot of nuance that, you know, I'm confident that you guys will consider, but just to put it out there about, you know, the reasons why there is that, you know, distrust between the community and why people are discouraged from applying to be police officers in this day and age. The climate of our country and the things that we see day in and day out also plays a factor. So those nuances and the ins and outs of those things cannot be, you know, divorced.
Well, what I like about what Tamika was saying.
Also, Dwayne. Also.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Also, I'm not sure about the current high school population in Mount Vernon, but when I went to Mount Vernon High School, we were heavily policed, and that relationship was a negative one and negatively impacted a lot of views on wanting to then serve your community as a policeman. So those are also things that have to be analyzed in this conversation as well, and cannot be divorced from this discussion about recruitment and building legitimacy and trust, especially if you're talking about recruiting, you know, younger people.
Yeah, good point.
Guys, let me jump in really quick, Coach D. I'm sorry. I'm gonna let you finish. I don't want to Kanye you or anything, right? But I want to be mindful of everyone's time. It is 8 o'clock, so if you need to hop off, feel free to hop off. But I think it's a great conversation, right? And I think what we need to keep in mind is that we actually need to start putting these things down into a document and making actual recommendations to accomplish the goals that we all want to accomplish, right? So I jumped into a few rooms. I'm here to be a resource. If you need me to help push things forward, give some ideas on how to put them in a document, how to consider some, like, what other municipalities are doing, I'm happy to do that. If all the side meetings that I encourage everyone to have so that we actually have a work product to look at next meeting, feel free to keep me on those emails. I can, assist. I can also have you present in this meeting next week, in 2 weeks, and things like that. So it is 8:02. So those who want to jump off, go ahead. And Iris Lady, if you don't mind, if you're able to circulate the contact information for everyone again, that'd be helpful. This recording will be circulated. And the survey link will be circulated again.
And I put my number and preferred email and name in the chat. And anybody can text me, email me, call me, I don't care. It's fine. Just not too
Yeah.
late.
Yeah, I was just going to say real quickly to Mika that one of the things I love what you guys are getting to, where it's not only from the police, and just going to say that any real change is going to require truth, and maybe we as a community have to really deal with our own truths here.
What we also said was it takes a village to raise a police officer.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and if any place you can make a statement to the police commission and to the police department that, you know, we're not here to crucify anybody. We're here to make it better for everyone. And there shouldn't be a reluctance to work with us.
Another thing I wanted to point out, and it was, you know, evident in one of the groups that I entered in, some of you have expertise that are outside of the group that you're currently in. We have a small working group. So if there's some policies that, you know, you came into this commission like, oh, I'm going to kill this policy, but you're no longer in that group, please feel free to work on it. And I can collaborate with you and, you know, pull some other people who are interested in working on that as well. And an example of that is, you know, who shows up when there's a non-emergent situation, right? Is it just a police officer? Is it a social worker? Is it both? And how do we determine that? So some policies around that, I know, you know, that's something Amy's passionate about, and maybe possibly Anika, I know you're a mental health professional as well.
And yeah, I'm interested in that too. I've worked in mental health for many years. I don't know if you're aware.
Yep. So maybe that's a sub group. Mary, I know you got a lot on your plate, so maybe it's not a sub group for you, but
but I don't mind Amy talking about that a bit and sharing, because I've done community service and acute psych service. So.
All right.
Okay, we actually wrote up some ideas and I'd be happy to send them out too.
That'd be great. I'd love to take a look. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right. Anything else before we head out and have a great Wednesday night?
Are we meeting more frequently than the 2 weeks, or is our next meeting in 2 weeks?
I mean, we felt that we should be meeting more frequently, but I don't know how everybody else feels about that.
So what is everyone's thoughts? My thought was that the larger group meets every 2 weeks, and in between all the subgroups will meet. But I'm open to, you know, we're governing by majority. So whatever everyone wants, that's what we'll do.
So am I no longer part of the policy and oversight subgroup?
No, you are. We just had some technical difficulties. Unless you want to
You
move
just
out.
want to leave me like that?
Yeah, we
To leave us like that, Anika? That's a hell of a thing.
we have a lot of people. You stay with us.
Oh my goodness.
You can, you know, go back and forth.
Right.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. Like, I just want to say thank you. We started with a large group. We're down to a smaller group. So thank you for the commitment and the work. I know it's a lot and everyone has their lives to live. So thank you. And what was our final decision on meetings? Do we want to meet next week, or are we meeting every 2 weeks and then the subgroups meet in between?
I think more work needs to be done in the subgroups right now to really drive stuff forward, right? So I would advocate for every 2 weeks, right? And really try to get the work done and put it down on paper in between.
I agree with that. I think we need the time to focus, to develop our ideas a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree as well, because I think that the more time that the subgroup gets to spend together, the more defined what the subgroups come up with will be presented into the larger group, because it'll be a more defined product, because you've had the time to, you know, put a little more time into it and a little more thought into it, and get everyone's input, and then you know, let's have it just make sense to be presented in the larger spectrum of the entire group.
Well, Coach D, you've been outvoted. we'll be meeting every 2 weeks as a main group, and then the subgroups will meet in between.
No, actually, that's what I meant. I meant that, yeah, just do something every week is what I really meant, yeah.
Sounds good. All right. That's all I have. Iris Lady, do you have anything?
No.
All right. Anybody else?
If you guys need anything, always shoot me an email. Okay.
Sweetie, are you part of
Okay.
our subgroup too? Or were you just like there for moral support and like, you know?
I was just there. I think I'm a part of everyone's group.
Okay.
Right. All right, everyone. Have a great night, and just look out for the email from Iris Lady. I'm going to send you over the link to this recording. And all right.
All right, great
See you
job,
in
Thank you.
everybody.
Have a good night,
great
guys.
Bye.
Good night.